Today's experience was extremely informative and eye-opening. As a person that has somewhat dabbled in master schedules when I was at the middle school, Austin Middle School here in Galveston, but despite that bit of information, remained pretty ignorant about the exact process and how it takes place. So the day being with Ms. Vianney and Mr. Temple was tremendously informative and eye-opening, and allowed me to get and to visualize through a window of how the actual master schedule would be developed. When we're looking at the master schedule, the first thing that came to the forefront of my notes and my observation was that the first consideration has to be, what are those classes that have to take place at a certain period of time due to facilities, due to athletics, and athletics really is the driving decision maker when it comes to the master schedule. Athletics will always take place at certain periods, so that means 1st, 5th, 7th, and 8th. And because of that, of course it limits PE, it changes our numbers, and it alters the system. So that's the first thing that's going to be in place when we look at a master schedule. Outside of that, the next criteria that comes into play are those classes that are offered for just one period. They will then take precedent. Then those classes that are then offered for 2 periods, and classes that are intertwined with the local community college then take precedent. One of the things that we discussed when talking about creating the master schedule is kind of our movement from a manual system, when we would literally take spreadsheets and make tally marks to create a schedule that did not have conflicting classes. And conflicts of schedule obviously is the greatest threat to creating something that is functional and productive. And when talking with Ms. Vianney, she expressed the fact that she had started doing the schedule with those tally marks and spreadsheets. And the process would start, of course, after the children had selected their classes, come in and spoken. So every child in the school coming in and speaking with their counselor, making some choices, and then developing a schedule going into next year. The scheduling process and the master schedule, the hope is to get it developed right at the end of school. But with the older system, it literally took a month behind closed doors, hashing out all of these issues before the conflicts could be resolved. In speaking with Ms. Vianney, the biggest change that they have made is moving to Skyward. And Skyward then can schedule the classes automatically, resolving conflicts. And this year, I believe, for almost 2,000 students, they were able to limit the amount of conflicts to around 33. And to me, that's an amazing amount of progress, because before, we're talking about a process that took over a month to complete. And now we're talking about one that took less than a couple of weeks. The staff and personnel issues that come into play are obvious. I mean, because you've got to deal with the coaching factor, you have to deal with the core classes, and then your elective classes and how those all operate together. So staff retention becomes crucial. Also, knowing the capabilities of your staff and what they can teach. Determine somewhat of what that schedule is going to look like. And when we're looking within that schedule, we work in a school that has varied communities. We have a STEM community, we have a biomed community, we have an I&E community, which is a media arts and vocational community. And all of those communities need and have time in order to meet. So all teachers really outside of the elective scale will have 2 off periods, 2 planning periods. One's going to be a PLC, which is a planning period. One's going to be an SLC, which is a community period. So all of those teachers that are meeting across subjects have to find a way to be able to meet with each other, and that really is the function of the master schedule, is not only to provide for the students, but to allow those teachers to have time to collaborate, to communicate, and to plan for their lessons. When looking at the master schedule, numbers do come into play, and there are some limitations. Those limitations generally occur in the sense that we are bound by a certain amount of numbers, and we don't want to exceed that. Ideally, I was talking to Mr. Temple. He said, hey, I'd love to have 15 kids in a class, but we know as a teacher in the public education scenario that's not going to happen. But ideally, we can get from 15 to 25 and we're good. Some classes will have as many as 30 kids just because it's only offered by one teacher, and even some classes as much as 40. The example I was given was that of government, and that created part of the issue. And when we talk about the step-by-step process, as I said, and just kind of want to reiterate going through it very quickly, that you're going to start with the students and their student choices, and then you go from there looking at those classes that need certain facilities at certain times. You go from there to looking at those classes that are a one-course offering, then a two-course offering, and some of those two courses or one courses are block scheduled, working with a community college as well, and that really determines the layout of the rest of the system. And after that, it's become really an electronic function, and we're using a computerized system that's allowing us to eliminate the tallies, the spreadsheets, the rigmarole, so to speak, of the old school type of scheduling. We talked about basically how this situation and how the schedule develops to allow for maximum planning, which then affects student learning, because if you can get together with fellow teachers and be collaborative, you can look at strategies that are functional and strategies that are effective, and you can discuss and hash out the best strategies for students, then of course you're going to maximize student learning. And I think that when you look at some of the analysis, we're looking at how school policies and practices protect the quality instructional time and time learning. One of the things, and student learning, one of the things that we do absolutely well is we limit distractions, we limit pullouts. Students are not allowed to go to another class during a period. So for instance, in my Spanish class, I'm not going to send somebody to a math class, nor is somebody in math class going to withhold a student from me during that period of time. And I think that kind of builds into the idea of planning as well as having a common time to plan. For elective classes, that doesn't always come to pass. So as a teacher of Spanish and also a coach, it's a rarity that I actually get to meet with my colleagues that teach Spanish. And that's one of the difficulties that we face. So we find other mediums to be able to communicate, whether it be through email, whether it be through communal web meetings, or it become through professional development or seminars. When reflecting upon this experience, I think what went well is we had an excellent discussion. There was a lot of information that was evolving through the process. There's certainly things that I wish I could have picked up on and could have been more incisive with my questioning and trying to find more information. But the biggest takeaway that I took from it is that the process has really become automated in a lot of respects, and that has eased the burden of counselors so they can focus on the student and the student's needs. It allows them to get the schedule and to schedule the students very early in the process without dragging out late into the summer. So teachers, therefore, are informed of what they're going to teach as they're going into the summer, and when they go into that situation this summer, you can prepare yourself much more effectively. The collaborative efforts, because of the common PLC and community planning times, is also a tremendous aid, that it allows for us to talk as teachers, because we often know that so often time is the great nemesis, whether it be meetings or it be other responsibilities or paperwork. We're drawn away from the process, the thought process, the metacognition, and thinking about what it is we're trying to achieve as teachers with our students. The most surprising thing to me was just the efficiency of the computerized system. I was a bit shocked that it would be that effective and be that time-saving, and because of that, we are in a situation where we've increased our efficiency tremendously, which allows people to do their jobs better. Out of the process, what would I change? I wish I just had a little bit more time, and honestly, I wish I could do it in a setting in which they were actually discussing the actual master schedule, and that's something that I'm going to come in this summer and look at and meet with the master schedule team and try to develop more of an understanding of the conflicts that arise, the issues that arise, and the resolutions that we can find. I think this practice, more than anything, is just eye-opening. It gives you an opportunity to look into the mind and to peer into the mind of somebody that's making a master schedule, because without a good schedule everything else is going to fall apart. You're not going to have time for planning. Children won't get into the classes they need. People will be overwhelmed by numbers. So overall, I thought the experience was very informative, and I think I left with a better understanding of how we achieve a master schedule, what the process is from start to finish, and most importantly, moving forward, I just want to get more information, to be more involved, and to have more understanding. So one day, when I leave this program and become an administrator, I'm a capable, organized, and efficient one. Thank you so much.